Thanks for those who joined really early. We have a very special guest today. We have Tom from Taxually, but I'll let him introduce himself. We have a really, really great topic we will cover today about mostly expansion and how the team of Taxually and Seller Candy can support you in this kind of like market expansion. Why don't we start with you introducing yourself to our audience today?
Yeah, for sure. Well, firstly, guys, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be on another webinar. I've done quite a few already in 2024. So loving sharing some knowledge on everything I've picked up over the past 8 years from being in the Amazon space. But yeah, my name's Tom Meek. I'm Partnerships Director at Taxually. I've been supporting sellers, as I say, for around 8 or 9 years now. Mainly on the Amazon side, but also sort of through multiple channels, maybe through Shopify, D2C sites, as well as other marketplaces like eBay, Bol, and plenty of others. I'm also a seller, so I've had a lot of experience going from one country to another and really understanding what the global strategies look like for sellers of all sizes. And it is a bit of a minefield when brands look to go from one country to another, especially with new taxing jurisdictions that they need to understand, different compliance requirements. And obviously on today's webinar, we're going to be digging into what that looks like in a bit more detail.
That's awesome. Actually, yeah. When I heard about you being our guest today, that's actually, guys, oh, this is actually my topic. I love talking about this one. But yeah, when should a seller really consider expanding to different marketplaces?
Yeah, it's a question that we get asked a lot. We speak to across the Taxually team. We're speaking to hundreds of brands every month, coming from the US to the UK and EU, and vice versa. And there's a lot of different answers to the question, but I think generally speaking, brands need to be whether they've dominated their home market before they look at expanding beyond. And it also depends on the team structure, the amount of time that they have to be able to put into an expansion, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It really also is determined by the demand of the product in the country that you're looking to go to. So making sure you've done a lot of your research and due diligence on, the price points of your product, understanding the consumer habits in that market. So you ask when the right time to expand. I think it involves a very vast amount of different things and considerations. But I think you need to be in a financial position to be able to do so, and you need to have the time to focus on what that successful expansion looks like. I don't know if you agree with me, Alvin. What from your many years of experience in the industry, what would you say?
Well, actually, I mean, that's I agree with you on that one. You have to really consider your financial position before expanding, because aside from that one is, as you said, the operational support. How big is your team right now? Because selling in different marketplaces, obviously, there's a lot more marketplaces to manage, not only on the VAT part, but also managing the PPC, the listings, translations, and all that. So yeah, like those are the things that really to consider. But are there any other things that you should be considering that I haven't mentioned or we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think this is quite a nice segue into introducing Taxually, because I know I didn't touch on that. I don't never like to start about introducing a tax company, because not many people get excited about tax, but we started with understanding the opportunity of expanding and why brands should think about it. So of course, there's a huge opportunity out there. And it needs to be the right time. But one of the biggest considerations brands need to think about is compliance and taxes globally. So a lot of brands that are looking to come from the US to the UK and EU will need to understand a little bit about VAT, or if you're going from the UK and EU into Canada, then GST, HST, and all of these confusing terms that a lot of brands may think is very overwhelming, and they think they need to learn everything. That's why brands work with a company like Taxually. And maybe if I just take 30 seconds just to introduce who Taxually are, so everyone gets a bit more context as to what we can do for brands, ultimately Taxually is a SaaS-based tax company with a global presence. So we have over 10,000 e-commerce sellers, Amazon sellers, using our software on an annual basis. And ultimately what we do is we take the headache out of registration and compliance, ongoing filing, okay, which is, as you can see from Arvin's face, a lot to factor in when you're a seller going global, because one of the biggest headaches is one, understanding the legislation, which is completely different from what you may be used to in your existing country. And then the ongoing obligation of filing that tax is another burden on you as a business to stay compliant. It's like dealing with multiple accountants in different countries with different jurisdictions. So what Taxually do is we really simplify that process through our portal, and it allows brands to get registered and stay compliant. And then in terms of what should brands be thinking about before they expand? That was the question, right? I've not got lost on my Taxually description. So brands need to think about a number of things, but I think some of the most important, as I mentioned, is tax, which we can come on to. Some of the other things are things like product compliance, label compliance. Of course, understanding your margins in a new country is absolutely essential. There's different tax rates, there's different duty rates, there's import taxes, there's different PPC and advertising spends that you'll need to do to rank organically. So I think to really understand the market is one of the most important things before you take that step in. But I think the most important is that tax, so VAT piece, and then the product and label compliance, because I think that's where most brands that I've spoken to over the past 7 or 8 years have gone wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, those are the common concerns of sellers who are expanding. Sometimes I don't know if that's actually something that actually can provide or can provide the service of having someone as a representative. Actually, my question in there is like, for example, if I am selling in right now, currently selling in the US, and I want to expand to the European region, because unlike before Brexit, that if I have my selling account registered in one marketplace rather, I can also sell in the European marketplace. But right now, after Brexit, I have to have 2 registrations. But for me, like, what's the best market to actually start selling, or when I'm looking to expand? Is it going to the UK or any marketplace in the Europe?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I think it really depends on your sales strategy. I presume this is an Amazon seller, right? Probably using the FBA model, fulfillment by Amazon. Is that fair enough to say?
Yes.
Yeah, fine. So I think the most common route, and it really depends on the size of the brand as well, as to whether they're going to be sort of dipping their toe in the water or jumping in with 2 feet. A lot of brands may look at the UK and EU now as separate like operating procedures in a way. So the UK, firstly, due to Brexit, is a much more divided region to conquer when looking to ship into the EU and UK. Okay, so since Brexit, what's really important is that brands split stock when going into new markets. So you need to treat the UK and the EU as almost two separate expansion strategies if you take a step back and look at it from an outsider's point of view. In terms of the countries that most brands will go to, it will ultimately depend on the category or product or type of products that you're looking to sell as to what country and consumer habits fit your product in the best way possible. But I think typically we see most brands going for either the UK or Germany. In most cases, US brands are going for the UK first because it's English language. It's a little bit easier to get yourself set up and ensure that your listings are, fairly comparable to your US listings and the keywords, etc. And Germany has got that additional level of complexity because of the language barriers there. So I'd say, typically speaking, brands go for the UK, and then after they've done the UK, or whilst they're doing the UK, they might look at getting into the EU as well. And we can come on to what that strategy looks like around that EU fulfillment network on Amazon. But before I do that, from your experience, Arvin, would you say that most brands are going UK then Germany, or are you seeing something different?
Well, actually, as you said, it's actually a pretty interesting question. I'm just curious as well. I agree with you. It really depends on the product category. Depends also on your research and where you want to expand. Of course, both marketplaces, like the UK, has its own benefits and also like its own like pros and cons. And also selling in Germany, it has its own pros and cons, which we probably can cover later if we have enough time. Especially in the European marketplace, they have sorry for the term if anyone is not aware, the Pan-European FBA. But of course, there's a lot of things that needs to be covered in that as well. But yeah, it really depends. My other question in there is like, okay, maybe I decided to sell in the UK or maybe in Germany, but I know that in order for you to send inventory, you have to have an EORI. I forgot what it is exactly. Like, the term is it is exactly, but it is just a document or a number that is needed for customs, all right, for you to be allowed to send inventory. Do you guys provide that sort of support as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's worth, what we can do is, talk about the UK expansion. What does it involve? And it's sort of highly relevant for EU as well. So from a tax point of view, and where it actually comes in is we get you VAT registered, which is like a tax number. So if we compare it to a sales tax number, very similar process. Okay. Now, again, depending on whether you're just selling on Amazon or whether you have some D2C sales as well, may impact the way that you need to register or file, especially if you're going to be sending physical goods into a country or not. But if we're going to be using Amazon FBA, you're going to be sending, let's say, most brands that I speak to are shipping in from the US or China into the UK. So let's talk about that process. So firstly, you're going to need to be VAT registered if you want to hold physical stock in a country across the UK and EU. Okay. So take the UK as this example. You need a UK VAT number to be able to upload to Seller Central for them to even allow you to ship your physical goods into their warehouse. Okay. So the first thing you need to think about is getting that VAT number sorted. That VAT number is going to take anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks, possibly even longer, for US companies to acquire. Okay, it's a really important aspect that brands need to take away from this session today. And that's from the point that all of the documents have been accepted from the tax office. Okay, so someone like Taxually you'd speak to and say, Tom, I want to expand to the UK. I need a UK VAT number because you told me on the Seller Candy webinar. I'm now here to get my VAT registration number through you. We will then ask you for the documentation to be able to register. And then once all of that documentation has gone to the tax office, they'll then release your tax number and we'll send that over to you. And then there'll be different filing periods in accordance to each country. So in the UK, you have to file your returns on a quarterly basis. But if you compare that to someone like Germany, you'd have to file on a monthly basis. Okay, so it all differs, but that's where Taxually are here to advise you. And there's two more things that you need to be aware of. When your goods get shipped from, let's say, China in this example, into the UK, there are two things that will happen at the border, which is when Arvin very rightfully said that you'll need something called an EORI number, an EORI number. And what an EORI number allows you to do is clear your goods at customs. Without that, you're not getting through. So that number and EORI. Now, as your goods come from wherever into the UK or EU, there are two taxes that you need to be aware of, okay? One is import duty and one is import VAT. Now, if you've VAT registered, which you will be if you're going to be sending your goods in, then you're able to reclaim your import VAT, okay? And what's the VAT rate in the UK, Arvin? I'm going to test you. What is it?
20%. I don't know if I'm still updated.
It is still 20%, okay, unless you're on like a reduced or zero rated, but most brands are going to be on a 20% VAT rate. So I'll put you under pressure there. So the 20% VAT rate, so when your goods import into the UK, the import VAT that you'll be paying will be calculated on the cost value of your shipment at import. So that 20% of the cost value of your shipment, which will be manufacturing costs, your shipping costs, your insurances, all of those sorts of things. And that is reclaimable against your VAT return. Okay, so that
I have a question. Sorry, because I just want this question because I may forget it. Because the import VAT is also, in other terms, is also called as purchase VAT, which is, as you said, claimable, right? And now that Amazon's policy about VAT has changed, like before that you were manually filing the output or the sales VAT and then the import VAT, how can you now claim the import VAT if Amazon is now automatically filing the output VAT?
Yeah, so it really depends on the sales structure of the organization, because a lot of brands will also have D2C sales as well. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you'll still be filing a nil return and then claiming back the money from the government or for the import VAT that you paid.
Oh, okay. So you're
That's
technically
what
filing.
Taxly would support you in. What you do
I
is
got you.
through the Taxly platform, you'd upload your C79 certificates, which was the
Mhm.
declaration of the import, and then you'll be able to reclaim the import VAT off the back of that process.
So it's as if like you don't have to worry about the sales VAT now because Amazon will cover that, and then the VAT, the actually team will help you with all of the import VAT and also outside of Amazon sales. Like if you're selling
Absolutely,
through
yeah.
your website. Okay, got you.
Yeah, so it's an interesting point you just raised there. So a lot of brands, like in the US, you have the marketplace facilitator, which is Amazon collecting and remitting the sales tax on your behalf. It's now changed to a fairly similar process in the UK and EU. The marketplace is responsible for collecting that tax, remitting it to the government, but it doesn't mean that you can't register and file, regardless of whether it's nil returns. So absolutely, that is correct. And then the only other thing I hadn't mentioned before I stop talking and passing back to you, because I'm probably boring everyone on taxes now, is import duty. So there is also duties that are applicable at the border that will depend on your commodity code of the product and products that you're shipping in. And that percentage is non-reclaimable. So again, when you're working out your margins and shipping into the UK as a new region, it's fairly straightforward when you understand what the process is from start to finish, but you really need to factor in what those margins look like from an early stage. Otherwise, you're going to be losing money rather than making money.
And that code, as you mentioned, the commodity code, and I mean, to my understanding, it's also called as HM code. Are you guys helping with that one as well, or is it the shipper who will declare it to customs? And because I know that most like example, like in Chinese supplier, they will declare it in a category that it has lesser percentage.
I think most brands, once they've come to us, will know where their products sit. I think you do need to be very careful about declaring the right taxes at import.
Yeah.
Obviously, the benefit is the reduced rate or zero rated products. So, and of course, there are different tiers for duties as well. So, yeah, I'd say that you need to do the research. It's not hard to find out your duty codes, but you need to make sure that you're in the right category to ensure that nothing comes back to bite you in the future.
Yeah, because those are not claimables, unlike the import VAT, right?
Absolutely, exactly that. But then I think it's also worth us, touched on the pan-European program. So we've talked about getting into the UK.
Mhm.
Now brands then look at the EU as a slightly different opportunity now, but the fulfillment network, the way that brands can actually ship into one country and then redistribute their products across many different countries across Europe is still really, really easy. So I don't know from your experience what you're finding on the Seller Candy side and how you're helping brands with that sort of thing. But I'm happy to touch on it from a tax and Amazon perspective.
Yeah, I just like to take this opportunity as well for those who don't know Seller Candy, or actually, like outcome driven support, where you can look at Seller Candy as your an extension of seller support, or actually the seller support experience that you are really looking for, because we provide the answer, we help you with like troubleshooting issues. VATs, section, this topic about the VAT or expansion, the thing that what our team can help you is when it comes to like listing or migrating your listings from original market, like for example in the US, and then listing it in the Canada, rather UK and then European marketplace. Actually, when you're expanding, it's not just about the VATs or being registered. The difficulty that you will face there is that Amazon will have several restrictions. Sometimes those restrictions actually doesn't make sense. So that's where Seller Candy team will come into place and help you in like getting your listings updated, list everything in there, remove all suppressions, any stranded inventory, or even like help you research if there's any compliance issues, and if anything that got delisted or blocked by Amazon, then will help you reinstate that listing. So yeah, that's how I mean when it comes to VAT and pan-European FBA, I'm not sure right now if actually the Pan-European FBA, you still have to manually enroll to that program, or if Amazon will automatically enroll you once you have the V8 or when you have the requirements that they're asking for. But for now, yeah, right now the only thing that I notice is just mostly about stranded issues and account health violation.
Yeah. I think just to add to that, I've dealt with a large number of sellers over the past year or so that have had a great experience of Seller Candy. The seller support piece, I'm going through the process at the moment of trying to help a US brand to expand into the UK and EU, and they've had so many issues with understanding the compliance piece, not only from a tax perspective, but also from international plugs and all sorts going on. So that meant that they couldn't enroll on the Pan-European program. They could get onto EFN, but they couldn't have the free movement of goods between each country in the EU. It's been a disaster. And I know I need to introduce them straight over to you because I know all of their issues will be resolved. So note to self, I'll definitely get that across to you. And then, as you say, on the Pan EU side, there's maybe a lot of people on here now that are thinking, what's Pan EU? And how do I see that as an opportunity? So ultimately, think of the EU a little bit like the US, okay? It's like one big fulfillment network that Amazon's operating out of. So with lots of different fulfillment centers in lots of different countries. The beauty of Europe, huge population, hundreds of millions of potential buyers for your brand, different languages, different tax rates, different requirements, of course. The beauty of the Pan-European program is that Amazon will allow you to ship your goods into one country. Okay. A lot of brands are choosing to go through the Netherlands because it's much easier. It's English-speaking port. The time to get your goods through customs is normally a little bit quicker than going through the likes of Germany or somewhere like that. And it's then nice and easy to get into the biggest market in Europe, which is Germany. Mm-hmm. Now, at that point, without going into too much detail on the Pan-European program, you've got two options available to your brand. You have European Fulfillment Network, EFN, or Pan-EU, and they're both FBA programs, Fulfillment by Amazon programs. The way of simply looking at those two options is that EFN, European Fulfillment Network, is similar to sending your goods into one country, like Germany or France, or whatever country of your choice, but in most cases it's Germany because it's the biggest market, and then selling cross-border into other countries. Okay. Now the benefit of that is that if you're only storing your goods in Germany, you only need to be VAT registered in Germany. And the benefit also is that you can still have all of the other storefronts open in all of the other countries, like in France and Italy and Spain, and sell to customers cross-border into those other countries. Okay. Again, there'll be a tax requirement there to register for OSS if you have cross-border sales, but that's something that we can go into on an individual call after the session. Now, what are the disadvantages? Because you're probably thinking, well, great, that seems like an obvious option because my goods are in.
Sorry, Tom, before you continue that one, because I know I'm just not sure if it is still true that one of the benefits of Pan-European FBA is since you can move in Amazon is actually the one moving your inventory from one market to another. And since it is like, for example, you have a French customer that now ordered from like French marketplace, and then they have the inventory in France, then it will be considered like local shipment. Then therefore it will be like cheaper FBA fee. Is it still the same? Because you will be able to save or reduce the FBA fee because it's no longer like an export from Germany to France.
Exactly. Yeah, you literally took the words out of my mouth about what I was about to come on to. So it's like, ultimately, when you sell cross-border, your FBA fees can be 2 to 3 times higher for cross-border transactions rather than locally fulfilling. Okay. So the whole point of the Pan-EU program is that if you're going to allow Amazon to redistribute your stock in line with customer demand, unfortunately, you need VAT numbers in every country that you're storing in, but let's say you have a VAT number in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, the major countries in Europe that Amazon are operating out of. Amazon then, based on anticipated demand, will spread your stock, as Arvind just said, in line with particular demand. And then those sales will be locally fulfilled, okay, which will be much cheaper for you, as well as you getting the Prime badge, which is one of the most important things, because otherwise you'll be missing out on potential sales and potential higher ranking based on Amazon's algorithm with the Prime badge. So ultimately, in summary of that, there are a lot of different routes into the UK and EU, but and I'm happy to talk anyone through this in more detail from someone having done it themselves. But ultimately, it will really depend on how aggressive you want to be, what the investment that you have to get into those markets, and having a really good understanding for which countries and why.
Yeah, all right. You were saying something about the disadvantage earlier before I cut you off. So yeah, carry on. What are those?
Good point. The disadvantages of the Pan EU program is that you need to register for each individual country for VAT if you're going to be physically storing your goods in that country. But the advantage is that you get to locally fulfill and you get the Prime badge. If you do the reverse of that and you send cross-border, then you're not going to have the Prime badge, which is a big issue, and your products aren't going to get to your customers as quickly as they can. So your customer loyalty and repeat purchases may take a hit. And of course, your FBA fees are higher. So there's a bit of a balance there, but I think I've listed the majority.
I have one question, but I don't know actually if it's too technical. But I do have this experience wherein a seller selling in the UK decided to actually sending his inventory to Germany, but the port of entry is in the Netherlands. So he got his VAT registration and VAT certificate because that's also another requirement in Germany. So he is now registered there, allowed to sell, and he started selling it. But then the port of entry, as I said, is in the Netherlands. So he is paying, or he's actually required by Amazon to pay for the import VAT in Netherlands, where he don't have VAT registration at all. Like, shouldn't that be charged or be paid rather in Germany? Why does he need to pay to the Netherlands?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It would depend on a number of things, so it's quite difficult to answer. On a
I know it's technical.
Well, yeah, but ultimately there are a number of different deferment schemes to allow you to actually pay the import back to the German authorities. It's something that we do for our customers. And also there is other schemes that are available, like in the Netherlands. If you were to register, then you can defer your import VAT by using something called Article 23. I'd recommend getting a call set up if you are experiencing that sort of issue, but ultimately you shouldn't need to register VAT in the Netherlands if you're just transiting into Germany. That's something that we do for a lot of our customers, unless you're looking to fulfill in the Netherlands warehouse, in which case, of course, you'll have physical stock, then you'll need to register.
So the answer there is actually just pay the VAT in the Netherlands and you get the claim back, right?
Yeah, you'll need to speak to one of the team here, and we'll be able to come up with the best solution for you. But ultimately, we've had clients that can defer that tax to the German tax office rather than through to the Netherlands tax office, because if you're just transiting your goods from one border to another and going straight through into the German warehouse, then we have some partners that have the ability to facilitate that.
Defer meaning just really declaring it, not really paying it yet.
Correct. Paying it on the point of sale rather than the point of entry.
Got you. And now that we're talking about all of these issues, the cons, and but I'm just curious: are there any key blockers or pain points that the seller may experience in expanding to European marketplaces or maybe even in the UK?
Key blockers. I think generally speaking, it's just about being thorough. I think there's a lot of brands, if you don't understand the full requirements and create a really clear pathway to expanding your business successfully, then you can really get yourself in a bit of a muddle. So my advice is that a lot of brands don't use the right service providers from early enough, and they think, I need to get a VAT number. Let me try and do that myself. Or I need to register for EPR, which is a new tax. I need to go and do that myself. And it's great that sellers are proactive, and a lot of them are very entrepreneurial, but at the same time, you can outsource a lot of these things and make your lives a lot easier. And there's a lot of free advice. So one of the biggest blockers is people not talking to the right people and understanding the level of free advice that they can have. The second part is, really understanding the compliance piece, Amazon support, I mean, you guys must see countless brands expanding from the US into the UK and EU and vice versa that have got so many seller support issues. Went around mainly around compliance and listing optimization, I can imagine.
Yeah, and since you mentioned about outsourcing it, like to you guys, for example, and we're talking about the monthly fees. Like, how much will it cost me, like, if I'm a seller in the UK and I'm just in the UK marketplace, for example?
But how much will it cost you to expand to the UK, did you say?
I mean, just outsourcing it to you guys, like all of, because I don't
Oh,
want to deal with
taxes.
the monthly, yeah, the taxes, the
Yeah, of
filing, and
course.
all that.
Yeah, so ultimately it would depend again on a number of things about where you're based. But if you're a US brand and you're wanting to register just in the UK, then we have two very simple fees. One is a VAT registration fee, which includes the EORI, and then the other is a compliance fee. So the first fee is €250 for one-time fee to get us your VAT number. And then the compliance fee is an annual fee, and that is €850 per year. Okay. And that will give you access to the Taxly dashboard, and you'll be able to connect your Amazon store or your sales channels via an API into the back end of your operations so that we can pull all the data automatically and let you know what to pay and when.
Oh, that's cool. You now have this integration because when I work with other company, we're doing everything manual. That's why I was able to actually understand how the VAT report works. So that's cool. So and then what if I expanded as well in the European marketplace, and I also decided to go to to enroll to this pan-European FBA, and one of the requirements is actually to be registered as well, not only in Germany but also in four other main markets of European market. Like, how much will it cost me then, like, if I
Yeah,
want to
it's a great,
outsource it to
great
you?
question. Yeah, so I mean, it ultimately depends on the countries that you want to go for. But ultimately, there will be different charges if you're based outside of Europe, which is something called fiscal representation, which can increase the fees. But on a high level, the registration fee stays the same. So it's €250 per country, and the annual compliance stays the same at €850 per country. So the more you go up, the more increase there is on the Taxly annual fees. All I would say is that it's a very small investment to add additional countries. So the question that I always get is, Tom, I'm thinking about going into Europe, UK. What's your recommendation? And I'll say, well, you do well in the US. What does well constitute? I don't know. Most of them are doing 500,000, a million upwards. They're doing that revenue, and some of them are doing much higher. Now they're now thinking about getting some market share in the UK and EU, and a lot of them toy with the idea of starting with the UK or UK and Germany. But if I could give anyone some advice, and if they want to do it properly and really see an ROI, you need to be locally fulfilling on a pan-European program to see the full results. Otherwise, Amazon's algorithm won't rank you organically, and you're going to be paying much higher PPC costs. Okay, and your margin's going to be eaten into due to obviously increased marketing costs. So I think with all of that in mind, I think it's really important for brands to jump in with 2 feet and make sure that they understand the opportunity in each market before doing a lighter touch expansion. But obviously the fees increase. With the fees increasing, you need to see the ROI. And so one other point on that, I got distracted from someone coming into the room. One other point on that is that brands that are expanding across the EU will sometimes want to try and understand what the market appetite is by selling from one country into another. Okay, and that's a real common problem that we see, because I'll say, Tom, I expanded to Germany, I've been selling in France, but cross-border from Germany, I haven't seen the traction I want, so I'm not going to expand to France. And I think that's a real common misconception across Amazon sellers, is that, well, yeah, you haven't seen the sales because you haven't been locally fulfilling. You haven't got the Prime badge in that local country. And why would people want to buy the product if you're not on Prime and you're not easily accessible and your delivery times are longer? So I think all of these things all factor into the main result.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, I can really tell that VAT expansion is actually not that complicated, but with the VATs and all that and the compliance and all of the requirements, you really need to have someone in your team who really know and understand it. And to my understanding, that the tax offices are only allowing locals to file VAT on your behalf. Like for example, if you're really selling in Germany, then you need to have like a local German, maybe accountant, which is actually that you guys also outsource, I believe, to handle that for you. So and it's not just someone expert. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So it actually has individual offices, and there will be a fiscal representative required in some of the EU countries like France, Italy, and Spain, for example. And Taxually will be acting as that fiscal rep, which is basically like actually taking part responsibility of your tax liability in each of those countries. So we want to make sure that you're compliant, and we do, have a fee that increases like 700 a year for us to be the fiscal rep in those three countries.
Yeah. Oh, is there anything that I should be asking that I haven't asked yet?
I think we've covered quite a lot. I think ultimately everyone will be at a different stage of their journey when it comes to expanding their business. I think the key takeaways and things that brands should think about is, one, when's the right time to expand? Am I in a good enough position to be able to warrant expanding my business, and to where and why? So really doing your market research. And then feel free to reach out to myself at any point. I've worked in, as I said, the Amazon space for about 8 years or so. And in that partnerships role that I'm in, I'm speaking to, service providers like Seller Candy, whoever else in the space, whether it's covering market analytics, whether it's shipping, 3PL, PPC, anything in the realm of Amazon and expansion is something that we'll be able to point you in the right direction for. So if it's not just tax, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. But yeah, I think we've covered most things. I hope I haven't confused anyone when it comes to taxes and expanding, but it's fairly complicated, but that's why we're here.
How they should reach out to you? Like through email, LinkedIn, or like any contact information that you can leave to our audience today?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the best email will be tom.meek, which hopefully you can see on screen. It's tom.meek@taxually.com. If not, LinkedIn or however. I'm sure if you're already dealing with Seller Candy, then I'm sure we'll be able to point you in the right direction. But yeah, or just go straight through to the Taxually website, and one of the guys will be able to help.
Yeah, aside from the VAT that Tom have covered, just for the Seller Candy point of view, if any one of you are experiencing difficulty with your Seller Central account, maybe stranded, or account violations, or anything happening on your Seller Central account, feel free to reach out to us. Actually, we're running a promotion, which is $400 off on your first month of subscription. If you want to avail that to any Seller Candy services, you can book a call with our sales team. But I don't know if actually Tom has something as well for Taxually. But yeah, Seller Candy has $4 off. But if you want to take advantage of that or talk to our team, here's the QR code that you may scan. Yeah, so if you want to just get an opportunity to talk to our sales team just to know more about Seller Candy or any issues that you're having with your Seller Central account, or even Vendor Central, if you're a 1P seller, feel free to reach out. And I'll leave that for maybe you on your side, Tom. Is there anything that you want to share or special promotion for our audience today?
Yeah, so we're offering 25% off that registration fees if you go for a higher bundle. So if you go for like the Pan EU program, as we've discussed today, then we're offering 50%. So feel free to get in touch with the team, let them know that you're on the webinar with Seller Candy and myself, make sure that you get your discount.
Yeah. Do you have any question for me, Tom, before we actually end this webinar today?
So I was going to give you guys another shout out. You guys are brilliant. All clients are happy, and seller support can be an absolute nightmare. And if you're looking for the go-to guys when it comes to ongoing support management to make your lives easier, then hit up Arvin and get your $400 off as a great discount as well.
yeah, I'll personally talk to you as well to strategize. But yeah, thanks, Tom. I mean, this is actually, I think, for me, it's actually the first webinar that I hosted.
You
So
did
I'm
brilliant.
kind of feeling a little bit nervous. So, but yeah, I think it went really well. So thanks for your help on that and answering all of my questions.
That was brilliant. Thanks for having me, guys. Good to meet you all. And yeah, hopefully we'll speak soon.